All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for attending today's presentation. My name is Sergio Brinckhaus, and I'll be sharing my passion for panel building in a simple and easy to use environment. Let's dive right in. So, one of the benefits of using a simple 3D environment is to be able to prototype your panel design, to be able to have accurate information, clear view, visual view of what's actually being produced. I'm a very visual person, so I need to have some detailed information that my eyes can see to confirm that what I'm doing is actually, is actually good. So another benefit of this level of environment and integrity that we have is the capability of producing documentation for purchase, for basically production purposes, and basically also for maybe wire fabrication. All this information that I need to produce eventually, that I would have to do it manually. I no longer have to worry about that. I actually can have the tools in place to enable, these tasks to be done very easily, very quickly. So Pro Panel application is one of these tools. And this is what we'll be looking at a little bit more in detail. Again, the benefits of this level of environment is to allow you to get the most out of what you have to offer using simple functions, and also sharing this data for your production needs. As you can see here, if I have information coming out of the data portal for parts and component data that I'm going to eventually associate to my schematic environment, from that schematic environment, that information is being ready to be populated and placed in my 3D prototyped environment of my panel design. From that environment, of course, I can start to produce additional information, such as, maybe export information in different formats. I can produce documentation inside the Eplan environment, bills of material, cut lists, assembly drawings. I can also produce information for machine processing, whether it be NC files, whether they be, maybe standard PDFs that need to be printed on a plotter and taped over the backplate, as simple as that. These tools in place and these functions enable users to really cut down on costs, because a lot of this information is being produced manually. Of course, we can talk and communicate with wire fabrication machines as well. So huge level of integrity that we have with these different tools that we have in place. The Eplan Smart Wiring tool. So welcome to the digital age. We no longer have to use paper and pencil. We no longer have to use a stack of schematics and using our highlighter pen, in the field where when we're working alongside the panel, I might have some coffee stains on the paper documents that I'm using, and there's a lot of information that might be missed or omitted based on some of the issues or errors in the workflows that I'm using right now. So SmartWire really will enable you to increase the productivity based on all the information, and for wire that you would need for wiring your panel is accessible to you in a simple tablet format. So let me show you what I mean. So let me go over here. I'm just going to end the show, close this up, share my screen again. And now you're looking at this environment. I'm going to bring up the Eplan environment. And inside the Eplan environment, of course, as you can see, is I'm doing schematic design work. And along with the schematic design work that I'm producing, all the components that I'm laying down have part information associated to it. And this part information that I'm associating has information such as width, height, depth, maybe some technical data, maybe some particular documentation associated to it, as well as macro information for to enable me to place this object inside any environment of my choosing. Of course, from this environment, what I can do is when I look at the panel environment inside the same interface, you don't have to open up additional tools. Everything is embedded inside the simple platform. And I can start to navigate through, and I can start to see, at what stages I'm at, what is needed, what is required, and I can actually see that the panel that I've selected, of course, the door, based with the components that I place, door is actually going to close, or there's no interference. So this is huge because a lot of the times when we're doing 2D design work, these are things that we don't think about, and they get omitted, they get lost, and this creates errors, issues. Time is being spent, and of course, as you know, time is money. So what we're trying to do is giving you tools with ease of use functionality to enable users to save on costs. The ease of use functions that the ProPanel tool has are very streamlined, very mouse driven, drag functions, very ease of use functionality. If I look at the front view and I actually select here the back plate, so I go here to mounting plate, all the objects and all the instances that I have here have been placed and associated, and I can start to have information relating to the components that I have here. I can actually go ahead and activate some mounting clearance information that I might have components that, in this case, dissipate a lot of heat. Therefore, that information that's associated in my parts management for this particular component, that information is displayed in an environment that is easy for me to see. So when I'm doing the placement of these components, assessing where these components should go, how they should be placed, is very simple using these visual aids. Of course, if I look at the front view again, and I actually tell the system to route. So if I select here and I tell the system to route the wires, the route of the routing functionality will be obviously selected based on this schematic information. So of course, these components, if I right click on this component, I see go to counterpiece, is represented in the schematic. In the schematic, I am showing that I'm connected on both ends. This information is accessible to me and is linked to the environment that I'm working with. So, of course, a huge benefit here because the routing information that is produced gives you accurate information about that wire. If I double click on the wire, I can actually see data about this particular wire that might be pertinent to me. Information that would be, such as the length. So here I have the length of the wire that I need for this particular environment. Taken into consideration, the system looks at the bending radiuses of the particular part, maybe the outer diameter also for these parts. Where would that be of interest to us? Of course, maybe fill capacity might be something that I have to be aware of. A lot of the times using tools that are just drafting applications, this level of detail is not very easy to access. I can even tell the system to filter. I have filtering capabilities to tell the system that as you route, go ahead and route through this channel only the wires that I asked you to. So whether it be 24 volt, 04 volt, neutral, 480, whatever you want, you can tell the system to route that information through the appropriate duct. Of course, the fill capacity levels I can also control inside the system. I can tell this particular project I would like you to set a warning level for the fill capacity of the wire ducts at 65%, at 75%, and so on and so forth. The benefit here is that I can actually tell the system to calculate the fill capacity based on the wires that have been produced, and then to display that fill capacity visually. So I do have visual markers. So if I actually go over here, I can see a visual green marker stating that this is the fill capacity that I have associated to this duct. So I still have some space available, and I can continue along with my tasks without the fear of thinking, maybe I might have missed something, and therefore later on at the production stages, this is something that can be time consuming when you're going back and forth with the shop floor to get the associated information in the right order. So these are things I don't no longer need to worry about. Along with that is as I'm placing these components, what's happening in the background is that I can actually start to see the drilling information that's being produced. The drilling information that's being produced can be useful for me because not only will I be able to see visually how the disposition of the drilling information is being associated, I will also be able to generate information and document information that is easily readable through maybe a Perforex machine here, or maybe even an NC. Maybe you have a water jet cutter, you have a laser jet cutter. We can actually use the NCDXF for any other machine types. Configure it so that the information comes out and is readable. The issue here is that you are, again, doing this already. So if you do have a machine in-house, you are using a third-party tool to communicate to that machine and to give the instructions necessary to produce that information and to produce that particular drill pattern that you need to associate with your project. The difference is that if you're using a third party, you might need to manually input that information, or maybe the information that you got was a day old, and maybe the engineer made some changes through the course of the night. Maybe he's a hard worker and he produced some additional information that you don't have when you come into work and you start to drill this panel out. So again, the information is not necessarily accurate, and here is where time consumption is being spent. Of course, allowing us through Eplan to produce that information gives the users greater flexibility and greater accuracy levels, so that when they're actually producing this information, this is not something that they need to focus on. They can actually focus their strength and their in other tasks that they have. Drilling templates are also beneficial. We actually have small companies who, starting with the ProPanel application, to be able to create a drill template, they no longer have to, use a Sharpie pen, use a ruler, maybe some masking tape. These are things from the past, and now we can start to move into the future and start to use tools and applications that you are going to enable you to do these things. So the drilling template would be a PDF printable through a plotter. You can tape this over the back plate. You can start to drill right through it. So again, time is the key factor here. This is something that a lot of us don't have a lot of, and it's something that you, even if you have all the money in the world, you can't buy more time. So if we can provide you applications that enable you to save time, this is also going to save on costs. This is going to give you the capabilities of maybe now looking into getting yourself a Perforex machine if you didn't have one already. Maybe it's going to give you the capability of looking at maybe some wire fabrication machines that you didn't have already, and now that you can't afford it because you're reducing your costs based on the time that you're saving, we can start to look into these other applications to even go ahead and save additional time. So you do the math, and you know what I mean. Of course, as I'm producing this information and I'm routing that data, visual aids really help me to produce accurate, detailed documentation. One of the aspects that we have when we're doing design work is the fact that a lot of these components dissipate heat, some more than others. And of course, one of the challenges that we have is we need to produce information for the power dissipation calculations. So this is something, a task that you're already doing. You're doing this. If this is something that you do, you're doing this either manually. You get an amazing Excel spreadsheet, or maybe you have other ways to calculate the total power dissipation. But again, these are using other applications, third parties, going through other tools to produce the same level of information. Whereas I have this information integrated. So by selecting this calculate total power dissipation, the system will calculate all the data from the particular parts and will start to use that information to calculate and to do the appropriate requirements and information that needs to be associated. So we do have properties in place that give you that level of information for calculating the max power dissipation. So max power dissipation, this part does have that information, therefore the system can actually go ahead and calculate that. Benefits here is that I can actually use visual aid tools again. Thermal design, I can say power dissipation density, and this information is being displayed to me. As I stated earlier, I'm a very visual guy, and when I see visually what's happening inside the system, it really confirms to me without a doubt that there might be some issues, or there might be some corrections needed. In this particular case here, I can clearly see that these drives are really pumping out a lot of heat, and therefore I can start to maybe consider AC units or maybe fans and so on and so forth that this panel might need in order to not have issues later on as this panel is being delivered and running. My customer might be upset because there's certain things that I didn't think about. Benefits, of course, include the fact that from this environment, I can actually go ahead and insert components. Of course, from this As I stated earlier, maybe there's a fan, and I can actually go ahead here and go through the data portal and look for a particular fan that I would need. So here I can even use the search tool, and I have here a fan part that I'm familiar with, and I can actually go ahead and select that fan. I know I'm going to need it in this project. And through this environment, I can then really quickly from the data portal environment, I can actually download that part information into my project. From that environment, that object now sticks to my mouse, and I can actually go ahead and place it. So it'll snap automatically to any mountable surface, and I can position it wherever I deem is necessary. I can actually use placement option capabilities to give it offsets if ever the case may be. So of course, from this environment here, I can go ahead, place it, and once that is placed, again, as I stated earlier, different visual aids really give me a high level of accuracy when I'm doing design work. One of those would be here if I look at the thermal design, maybe the airflow direction. So maybe I picked the wrong fan that's actually pushing air out as opposed to pushing air in this case. So I can see here, well, do I have to push air in, or maybe what I should do is consider a different product that pushes the air out. In this case, maybe that would be a little bit more accurate for what I'm trying to achieve. Additionally to this, we can actually view here and we can see maybe some reserved areas. So this particular fan object does have a particular reserved area that I need to abide by. So of course, if I place an object in that area, it's not what the manufacturer spec'd out. So obviously these visual aids enable me to have accurate data, accurate reading as I'm producing this information. Now, of course, from this environment, as I'm moving in towards the production levels, as I stated earlier, if I show you the route again, the routing capabilities will route all the objects and give instructions, clear instruction sets of, what needs to be done when we're going to be producing the wire information, when we're going to be doing the wiring for these particular environment. And of course, one of the benefits of this is the fact that when we're going ahead to wire this panel, so if you're a panel shop and you're doing some wiring in-house, the workflow comes into play again, as I stated. The workflow being that you might be using schematic sheets, you might have a highlighter pen, you might be going through the panel, you might be going through the schematic sheet, you're trying to have an accurate reading to understand, and there's a lot of time being spent in just reading the schematics and making sure that you have the wire information plugged into the appropriate, component. As you all are aware, mechanically speaking, this panel looks very nice. But if it's not wired properly, it doesn't matter how hard you hit that start button, nothing's going to happen, of course. So what we can do from here is we can actually publish this project using this publish function. And we're going to introduce the smart wiring tool. So as I stated earlier, using archaic means of producing certain tasks really cost us time. This is the issue that we don't have a lot of, as I stated earlier. And what we want to do is we want to help you save it. We have a tool called the smart wiring application, as you can see here. And through the smart wire application, what this is a tablet-based application that we can, install in any Windows-based tablet PC. There's, many tablets out there, very, user-friendly, and also, the costs are going down exponentially as we produce new hardware. There's always, some tablets that you can get, from 300 to 400 bucks and stuff like that. So obviously, we can actually start to use that inside our production environment. What I can do from here is I can open up a project. And from the project, what I can do is I can actually go ahead and start the project, use the project that I'm working on, load that into my tablet environment. So the scenario is that I'm actually in front of the panel, I'm in the shop floor, I could be a junior level guy, I don't have to be a high level electrician, and I'll have clear set of instructions to actually start to produce this information. So now what you're looking at is an interface, and this is my daisy chain view. Why do I activate this daisy chain view? Obviously, as you can see here, there are two wires that are going into the same cavity. If I select it here and I have a closer look to this FC1 component, this FC1 component has a in, but it also has another wire going out to another component, another source. So obviously, having these visual aids really help me to produce and to, so I don't, inadvertently wire the first one, screw that wire in, and then oops, okay, now I got to grab the other one, unscrew this component, twist the wires together, and again screw this again. Again, time consumption. So with these visual aids, I have clear sets of instructions in what my tasks are to be performed. I can say this wire has been routed on one end, this wire has been routed on the other end, and I'm good to go, and I proceed along with the different tasks ahead. Benefits also include the fact that you can filter. So very easily, I can actually go ahead and filter for different, wire types. So I have a clear set of objects that I need to work on and I can focus on without having a clutter of information. So from here, actually, I can select this object, and as I'm doing my panel wiring inside in the field, and if ever I notice an issue, if ever there's some instance where I can flag the engineering department to let them know that the documentation is erroneous, I can actually communicate this information back to the departments that are affected by this issue. I can send a message out. I can take a screenshot, maybe of the schematic or even of the information that I'm trying to provide. I can also use the tablet that has, obviously by default, a lot of these products have cameras attached to them, and I can even take a picture as I'm in the shop floor. I can take a picture with the tablet using this function here, upload file. I can associate that file to the message. So when I send this information to the engineering department, they have a clear set of instructions of what I'm trying to state to them, and they would actually be able to maybe make the corrections and do the necessary changes, where I will eventually reopen the project and update that project to be able to continue along with my tasks and also make the corrections necessary on the wires that might have some issues associated to them. Again, from here, you have a clear set of instructions. You have a lot of capabilities and possibilities to be able to see. You can actually even zoom in tight. You can hear, once you get very close, you'll notice that there's a little icon here which enables you to actually click on an object. So if I double click on this particular device, it will give me here, this device will be highlighted and will basically tell me a clear set of instructions what this device is, if it's connected to anything, if there's any sources. I'm going to reset the filters, double click again here, and now I have a clear set of all the wires that need to be used to wire into this particular device. So giving me a very ease of use functionality to have clear sets of instructions when I'm producing this high level documentation and so on and so forth. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to proceed to open up the chat lines. If you have any questions on anything that you've seen now, now would be a good time to share your comments. So here, let me open this up and let's take a look at this. So I have here a question. Yes. So is there any capability to use smart wiring for Android or iOS? That's a great question. Obviously, we've chosen the Windows platform due to the fact that this is the go-to platform for a lot of people. Right now, I don't have any information as anything having to do with Android or iOS. But of course, I think the Windows-based PC tablets are a lot less expensive than your latest iOS tablet and so on and so forth. But yeah, this is an interesting question that probably something that we can look into. But obviously, for now, this is a Windows-based PC tablet. Let me see here if we have additional questions. Is it possible to edit the airflow and other therm information in the macro? You do have capabilities of assigning properties to the macros, but in the case of airflow, this is very dedicated to certain products that are out there. This information is readily available in the data portal, and chances are, based on the manufacturer specs, this information can be associated through the data portal, and all you really need to do is import that information back in. Can smart wiring route high voltage wires separately from low voltage wires, or even three-way separations based on a criteria? All right, so this is a winner question. Smart wire is basically a reflection of what's being produced inside the Eplan environment. If you, through the Eplan environment, you have routed these wires with these criteria and these conditions, then smart wire will just be a reflection of it. What we can do in the smart wire environment is we can change, here if I show you through the settings, the wiring methods that we're going to use, whether we do it single or sequential, or basically whether we go here to the list view and we say we're not in the daisy chain mode. We have different source target mode, destination mode, and different modes available to enable you to do your wiring processes based on certain workflow requirements. Is it possible to put a filter on a wire bridge in a terminal? Through the Pro panel, of course, filters on wire bridges, technically the saddle jumper data that's been associated inside a schematic, that's basically where you manage that data. To put a filter on a wire bridge inside the terminal, this is something that you would have to do in the schematics per se. So if there's any particular filters or any particular data that you do not want to have exported out, again, this is something that you do with inside the Eplan environment, and then whatever information you commission out or you publish out would be a reflection of what you have in the schematic environment. It's a good question, though. All right, let me look here, just looking at more questions if they arise. One of the things that you can do, of course, we still have some more venues coming up. So if you're interested, I would highly recommend you to assist to them if you have the chance. You can also, if ever you have any more questions on certain topics that you've seen today, well, I highly recommend you to go into the foyer, look into the chat room areas, communicate to one of our technical specialists that are available to you. You can chat to them and ask them questions, and they'll be more than happy to answer those for you. All right. I'm going to wait a little bit longer just to see if anybody has additional questions available. And again, with the different suite of products available in the different areas in the lounge area, there's a lot of information available, whether it be a video presentation, whether it be maybe some screenshots, even some PDFs, some paper information that is provided to you. So this is all available for you as well. These sessions are being recorded, so I highly recommend it if you have any colleagues that were not able to attend, and you can point them to the direction that, hey, look, I assisted something very interesting. You might be interested in seeing it. They will be able to see it. These recordings will be posted and will actually be accessible to everyone for a while, so you can use that medium as well. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. Let me just use one last one here. No, nobody's is asking questions, so that's great. I was more than clear for you guys then. That's what it means. And of course, again, I want to thank everyone for attending, and it was a pleasure to spend this time with you and show you some of the beautiful functionality that we have to offer. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys sometime soon in the near future. Thank you for being there. Take care. Bye-bye.